Question number 481. Dr. Shashi Tharoor ji.
481,
Today
Madam
you are
Speaker.
the
The reply is tabled on the...
Yes, supplementary.
Madam, the Minister in his answer confirms that bank account penetration in the country has increased. And while we obviously welcome and urgently need more financial inclusion, the manner in which our government has gone about this process has left our banking sector overstretched with the limited infrastructure it depends upon, leaving us open, I'm afraid, to fraud, cybercrime, identity theft, compounded as well by the constant failure of power and internet supply. I have a report from the National Crime Records Bureau here, ma'am, which shows that the number of cybercrime cases rose by 21.6% in 2015, and most of these are financial crimes linked to bank accounts. So, Madam Speaker, we know that the underprivileged, the uneducated are the ones who are the victims of this. Inclusion is important, but we can't make them more vulnerable to crime. And I'm curious, particularly we have accounts, these dormant accounts linked to migrant workers who work in one state, have accounts elsewhere. All of these things are creating major problems. So the question I have for the Minister is, what is the government doing to ensure that financial digital infrastructure in the country is improved and strengthened? And is there a risk assessment of the financial digital infrastructure for these new bank accounts? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam, the honourable member has asked a very relevant question. As far as the banking infrastructure is concerned, the expansion is not merely in terms of the brick and mortar branches alone. Because if you see the nature of the banking activity, technology itself has now facilitated it. And therefore, besides the normal brick and mortar branches, you will also have banking correspondents who go from home to home in areas which are otherwise not covered. You have the new payment banks which have started. You have the telecom operators who are now operating payment banks. And therefore, the expansion of the banking activity per se has taken place. Obviously, as a natural corollary to the banking activity is the expanded footprints of the digitization, because the act of physically going to the bank and doing in person the banking activity itself over a period of time will come down, because the digitization process itself increases. Now, obviously, any form of digitization will always run the risk of technology being tampered with. And therefore, while those who hack and those who tamper with technology will always be alert, at the same time, the banking industry has its own experts in the field whom they hire, who try and build the firewalls around their system in order to make sure that this becomes as tamper-proof as possible. Crimes will increase, but the fact that crimes will increase is not a ground that you should not opt in for technology. Technology also then has to parallelly improve in order to be able to tackle with those criminals who are able to indulge in these kind of crimes.
Yes, second supplementary.
A second supplementary is on a different subject that you would like, Madam. But I think the Minister still owes me a bit of a reply on the question of whether there's an assessment of the risk for the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure. But my second question, ma'am, is I have with me the Committee of the Reserve Bank on Medium-Term Path on Financial Inclusion, which made a number of suggestions for better financial inclusion in the country, including in particular, Madam, I think you will like this, improved facilities for opening more accounts for women and additional credit facilities, particularly for underprivileged women. Now, the fact is that I've also seen the All India Debt and Investment Survey report, which says that the interest rates paid by female-headed households are higher than the interest rates paid by male-headed households, which is illogical because most microcredit actually establishes that women are very good at repayment. So why they're being charged more interest, I don't understand. Given that financial inclusion should be a vital tool in our country to empower women. So my question is to the Minister, can he pay attention to this issue? What can be done to encourage and provide more incentives for women to get financial inclusion benefits, including preferential rates of interest, and to see whether financial inclusion can be gender sensitive as well? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam, to just respond even to the earlier question, there are risk assessments which banks do individually and collectively. That apart, financial inclusion has been a top agenda as far as the government is concerned. In fact, one of the first acts of the present government in the year 2014 was to launch a massive financial inclusion scheme, which was the Prime Minister Janadan Yojana itself. Now, as a part of it, women were recruited in a big manner, and about 51.5% of the Janadan accounts opened belonged to women itself. And therefore, an effort was made, because that was the uncovered section of the society, to bring it within the purview of the Janadan scheme itself. Now, microfinance interest levels are normally higher, and women in informal trade were always relying on these microfinancing modes of getting credit where the interest rates were higher. And therefore, the Mudra Yojana itself brought in not only women, but also people from amongst the SC, STs, OBCs, minorities, weaker sections who could otherwise have access to those funds. And that significantly brought the interest rates down compared to what the private microfinance institutions themselves were doing. Additionally, if you recollect, the government also started a separate program where every branch of one bank, every one branch was asked that one SC, ST and one woman entrepreneur with a reasonable loan amount should be created into an entrepreneur within the jurisdiction of the bank itself, and it became obligatory for every bank as a part of the Stand Up India to finance one woman entrepreneur to set up an industry or an enterprise itself.
Thank you. Sri